Thank you. Atlanta, what's good? I am Carl Lamar, and I'm your host for the Debut Live. We are celebrating 50 years of hip-hop. Talking about the innovators, the game changers, and it was only right for us to come to Atlanta because we had to pay homage and give flowers to a super game changer. Talking about a Grammy Award winner, songwriter, Hall of Famer. We're gonna celebrate 30 years today of So Def. Ladies and gentlemen, give a hand to Mr. Jermaine Dupri. You're right here. Right there.
Check. All right. Yeah. Well, I got this mic on. I got on two different. Oh, all right.
For safety.
I got one mic in my hand. Right.
For safety first, like I said, we have a game changer, a legend. We're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, my brother. So I got to ask you, first and foremost, what does 50 years of hip hop mean to you?
It means that it's funny because it actually means just like a beginning. It doesn't even feel like 50 years. It feels just more or less like a teaching and an introduction to something that we all fell in love with. That's what it feels like to me. It don't really feel like 50 years. It feels more or less like I said, like I think, because I think when I first started rapping and doing this, I thought hip hop was like way older than 50 years, even though I knew it wasn't, but it felt like it was. And I think we especially here in the South, we did things that moved as if we was in a genre that was already like 100 years old. Right. And not until I got inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame did I start realizing, like, wait a minute, this is a young genre. This is not, you know what I mean? This is not something that I feel like is 90, 100, 120, 150 years old. I thought it was. For some reason I thought it was. So ultimately it feels young to me. It doesn't feel like 50 years.
I love that. You don't mind if I take it back? I love taking it back. So I remember, I was reading, doing my research, and I remember Baby Jermaine. I was with Offset last week, and Offset was telling me how he broke into hip-hop. It was through the dancing. Baby Jermaine was getting filthy with the dance moves back in the day, in the Freaks Come Out at Night video, hanging out with Houdini. I'm curious, you dancing, did that forge your love with hip-hop? If not, what was the starting point?
That was before. I mean, well, I think that it was, yeah. I had a starting point before that. That was just a little bit after my starting point. Yeah.
Okay. Now,
I started out for the most part as a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your father, you come from a musical house. Your father was a struggling artist, but also a roadie as well. Talk about the relationship you two had as far as like the love for music and that dynamic.
Well, my dad was a musician, or wanted to be a musician anyway. In the beginning of, I guess, my growing up, and then he found his way more as a stage manager mostly, and he had started working for. He started working for Bunny Ransom, who actually was Bunny Jackson at first, was Maynard Jackson's wife. So she basically was married to Maynard Jackson, who was the mayor who actually really turned this city into what this city actually is. My dad actually started working for Bunny, and Bunny managed, along with David Franklin and all these other artists that they managed Brick, SOS Band, Cameo, and all the P.O. Bryson and all the other black artists that was born, that was birthed out of Atlanta. So my dad was like a stage manager for a lot of these artists. So when I was little, I got an opportunity to go to their rehearsals and be on the side of the stage while they was performing and all of this. So I grew up basically watching what I ended up doing.
I love that because there was a point you and your dad ended up like having a working relationship together when you found like your first act, Silk Times Leather.
Yeah.
You guys decided to team up on a management front. I'm curious, when you get business involved, how do you guys make sure it doesn't affect the father and son relationship aspect of it all?
I mean, well, it's interesting because people always say this. Like you just say, you had music in your house. My mother and my father weren't together, so it wasn't in my house. You know what I mean? I was raised by a single mom. Basically, my dad was just in my life, but he wasn't in the house. For I think the beginning of my life, yes, but I think, and I keep talking about the beginning of my life, I'm just started like 10, 11, from like 10, 11, 12 on out. My dad wasn't around, which is the years that I found music. But prior to that, it was there. And I think that one of the things that people have a misunderstanding about me is that I'm 100% about business, right? I understand that it's a line between this and it's a line between that. And every time I deal with somebody, I put them in a certain space. So with my dad, I knew that I knew what I did. I knew who when I went and got the girls, I made the music, I was writing the raps and all of this. I knew that on the creative side of that part of it, that was what I was supposed to be doing. I knew what I wanted him to do, and we had never done this before. So when you never done something before, it's very, very imperative that you be as straightforward as possible, right? So therefore, I drew the line in the sand immediately, like this is what this is what I need you to do. You the manager. You manage the group. You do what you got to do with the group. I'm going to do what I'm doing with this part. And as long as you keep it like that with people, I mean, a lot of times people don't understand it, but as long as you keep it like that, it'll stay where it's got to go.
Well said. Understood, man. And, after that, you ended up finding Crisscross. You found Crisscross in the mall. Initially, you thought, like, all right, these kids got some swag, like, but they don't rap. And you thought maybe they do TV. They didn't do any of that. What compelled you to work with both Chris's to make Crisscross, knowing that they had zero experience and you building them from the ground up?
I mean, well, like I said, this is a beginning of life that you don't know. This is Atlanta when nobody in Atlanta wanted to be an artist. Like, it was, you could go anywhere. It was nobody out here that was like, I want to be an artist. So you trying to be in the music business in this time in Atlanta, people was looking at you like you was weird. Every time I had a conversation with somebody about me being in the music business in this city, they would always say, oh, well, boy, you better find you something to fall back on. Like, nobody says that no more in Atlanta. Don't nobody tell you to fall back on shit in Atlanta no more. It's just like, I rap too. I sing, my cousin do it. It's
Everybody
like,
do that.
What happened to the person that's going to tell you to fall back? Well, I hope you better have a plan B to fall back on, right? That person, whoever that person is, they got the hell up out of this city, right? So that's what it was. So ultimately, it wasn't even foreign for me to be like, to hear them say, "Oh, rap? We don't rap." Of course, they shouldn't have rapped, because then I would have been. Because I mean, I honestly thought I had stumbled into some kids that I never saw on TV before. That's what I thought. I thought like, damn, they must be like superstars on Nickelodeon, the way people was acting in the mall. And I asked them, that's why I asked them, I'm like, what y'all do? Like, y'all got a TV show or something? You have to have something. And once they said they didn't do nothing, but I seen the people's reaction. That's what I paid attention to. I was paying attention to people's reaction. Everything else, I didn't care about nothing else. I just was like, something is happening between these kids and these people that work at this mall. And even when I talk about this, you guys probably can't even understand what I'm talking about. I'm telling you, you've never seen this type of type of activity happen with people that are not famous ever. I've never seen it.
That's crazy. And you ended up penning #1 song for them from your bedroom, which was Jump. Knowing, how much of a classic record that is, multi-platinum record, talk about like your expectations. Did you foresee or forecast this kind of success for them?
Yeah, because like I said, I had to make a record that lived up to what I saw. That was the thing. I wasn't trying to like Chris and Chris was Chris and Chris. They was two kids that was just fresh by themselves, but they had to have a record that lived up to the activity that I saw. What I saw in my eyes was the most amazing thing ever. It was like people was giving them free shit at the mall, and it's like, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm over here like, and they weren't giving me nothing free, and it was like, why are y'all giving them free stuff?
Right.
Like, why? And the girls like, I love them. They are so cute. And I'm like, what? What kind of shit is this? Like, what sense does this make?
Right.
But whatever that energy was, that's all I was trying to capture. It's like, if I get these kids on TV and girls that see them that are regular girls that like work at the cookie company or work at Foot Locker,
Mrs. Fields,
if they see them and they have a record that they like, it's possibly no way that they cannot become stars. I knew that for sure.
1,000%. I gotta credit you, man, because at the time you were the youngest producer to have a #1 hit record. And then you had a humbling moment. Mr. Babyface.
Yeah.
Had a combo with Babyface. And Babyface was like, got a #1 record, that's cute. Talk about that conversation.
Yeah, I mean he I guess he was stunting on me. I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, so we had our introduction, and maybe I was arrogant to the way that I met him.
Yeah.
But I'm a hip hop guy, so I'm not really like, and I didn't care about R&B at all at this particular point in time in my life. So yeah, I probably was like, this R&B nigga, like whatever, right? So we met, and I'm like, I may acknowledge him. I'm not disrespectful, but he was like, oh, you the guy that got the little crisscross song. And when he said little, I'm like, wait a minute.
All the final words in my hood. Yeah.
What are you talking about, little? We had a #1 record in the world at this particular point in time, right? So I'm like, little. And he's like, yeah, like, it's cool that you got that, but how many times can you do it? And that's when I just like paused, like, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what this is about. Like, how many times you could do it. So it's like, at that point, he took all of that energy and all of that excitement that I had for Crisscross, he took it out, just bust the balloon and was over with. But it was good that he did that, because it made me realize, like, one hit record don't matter to people who make a lot of hit records. And ultimately, that was the world that I was trying to go in. I was trying to go into the world of making more hit records and hit record after hit record after hit record. And these guys don't even pay no attention to you when you got one record.
What I think is interesting, after the success of Crisscross, you end up having Escape. They come to your house, sing you happy birthday.
Yeah.
And you like, yo, this is fire. I want to give y'all a deal. But you don't got a label.
Yeah.
You about to sign them with no label.
They call that cap these days.
Yeah, they call it cap. Yeah. We call that cap. But eventually you ended up signing them. But I'm curious as far as, man, what made you decide to not jump ship, but to go into the R&B lane with Escape?
Well, I didn't actually believe that it was true R&B. I thought that it was gonna be like, I envisioned doing something with them vocally and putting them on top of beats, and it wasn't really like traditional sounding R&B music that I was thinking I was gonna make. I ended up making traditional sounding R&B music without even trying to. But initially it was just like, oh, I could put these girls' vocals over top of this beat and we can make it sound like a hip hop R&B group. That's what my mentality was telling me. It turned into something completely different.
Turned into something big. Shout out to Escape. I got to talk about the Brat because you ended up learning about the Brat through Crisscross.
Yeah.
You had initial trepidation when it came to signing the Brat.
Yeah.
What fears did you have going into signing her, and why did you end up signing her?
I mean, well, at the time, female rappers was like not a thing. It wasn't even a thing for you to even think about. I think that we had Moni Love, we had Latifah. Of course, we had Salt and Pepper. Salt and Pepper was, but as a female solo lyricist, it wasn't nobody that people were really just like going crazy over. I mean, like I said, Latifah was doing what she was doing, and she was probably the biggest of this. Oh, and then MC Light. So you had these girls that was there, but Crisscross had sold like 5 million records, and then Escape had sold 2 million. So I was in the space of like thinking about what Babyface said, right? So I was just like, my next project can't be no female rapper. I'm not even gonna kill myself like this, right? So it's just like Chris called me from Chicago and they was like, yo, we met this girl, we met this female rapper, she crazy, you should hear her. And I'm like, nope, hang up. And I'm like, I hung up on them. They called back, and Chris is like, man, I'm serious, you need to check her out, she dope. And I'm like, and then I'm like, wait a minute, you guys think just like I think. So why y'all like her? Right? So that was the first thing that made me think maybe I should listen to it, because I'm saying they telling me they was 12 and 13, 14 years old. If they telling me she dope, then I need to pay attention.
And she ended up pulling up on you after the fact, right?
Huh?
She ended up pulling up on you.
Oh, yeah, I mean, she tried the first time, and I said no, and then she kept being persistent, and then she came, and then I just was like, I'm gonna pick you up, because after me telling her no, and you still persistent, I'm like, okay, listen, I'm gonna at least listen to you, and I'm at least check you out. So I picked up, and like I said, she still had this verification coming from the Chris's, so I had to at least check it out.
Now, Functified, banger. Before even making Functified, I know there were some struggles, like, in the studio, trying to find that right song. Talk about those obstacles and hurdles before Functified came about.
Yeah. So I made like 2 years of music before we got to that song, because I couldn't find a song that made my friends like Brat. They was cool with Brat. They was like, but my homies that drove cars and was listening to music, they weren't never like, let me get that song. They weren't never like, let's put this song in. It was just like, cool, Jermaine got this new little female rapper. But it wasn't no real like surgency to it. So I didn't like that. I kept trying to find that spark. So I make a song one night, see if that worked, wasn't it? Make another song the next night, wasn't it? And it took me like 2 years. The longest project I've ever worked on. It took me forever to get to that space.
And what I think is crazy, because by this time you had written X amount of records, and I want to say Functified was the first time like the industry really got to see you up close, like rap.
Yeah, I mean, I was, like I said, I was just trying anything, but I was writing the song. So this is what happens. Like, I be writing songs, and if I put my vocals on the songs, most of the time my vocals is on there, and that was just a demo. And then I was just like, we start doing it like that, and I think I did the first part, and I didn't have the next lines, and I think she said it, and it was like, oh, this sound right, like, you should go do that. But then at the time I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I'm just doing this part so she can get all the parts. But it sounded cool for us playing off each other.
That's fire. And then, a couple of years, we gotta give a shout out. Life in 1472, 25 years.
Yeah.
This year. Came out in 98, classic. I love how diverse the album was. But, I'm biased. I'm from New York. The New York love that was on there. You rapping with Nas. Obviously, we know Jay with Money Ain't a Thing. You rapping with DMX, Mace, Lil Kim.
Yeah.
At this time, 97, 98, talk about your relationship with New York and the artists themselves.
I mean, I was just talking about this record today. Like, Money Ain't a Thing, I don't think people in the South or even Atlanta even understand, like, there's nobody in the South, period, that had a record with Jay-Z ever. Nobody from the South, not one person. Wasn't nobody even thinking about. And my homies from College Park didn't even fuck with Jay-Z. So New York actually played Money Ain't a Thing more than Atlanta, because Atlanta wasn't really up on Jay-Z, and it wasn't like a thing. Jay-Z wasn't really popping out here. He didn't have no song that was on the radio in Atlanta when we did Money Ain't a Thing, right? So it's a real interesting education behind that whole process because of how much of nothing was established when this was going on. You know what I mean? It was just me loving hip hop and just saying, and I was like, if I'm gonna make a record, I want to make a rap record, right? And I want to make my rap record to be more, because people was so much like Jermaine makes kid music, and it was like Crisscross was like haunting me as far as like if I make more music, it was like he makes kid records. So I was like, if I make an album, I want people to hear what I actually like and what I actually love. Is I actually love rap records that are really like centered in the in the belly of real true hip hop.
Yeah.
So when I did Money Ain't a Thing, I wasn't even thinking about radio. I wasn't even thinking about selling a bunch of records. I was just trying to get my point across that, like, when you deal with me, you understand you're dealing with somebody that's really into hip hop. So when I got Jay-Z, I was just trying to do like I guess a backpacker type move, right? Like put somebody on the record that wasn't really like a known MC like that, but he was known in New York, and people in the underground, they felt Jay-Z. But in Atlanta, Jay-Z, nobody wasn't paying no attention to Jay-Z when I put that record out.
That's crazy. And I think at the time, nobody would have, thought about Kanye West, who was, I didn't even know he produced the intro.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
like
nobody know Kanye either. It was like, that's not even like a, I mean, you wouldn't have known about him. Unless you lived in Chicago and you heard about him coming up. But as far as me putting him on the record, it was just like I said, he had an idea. I said, make the beat, see what's happening. He made the beat, and I was just like, good with it.
You know what's interesting? Because obviously you got to flex your rap muscles in Life in 1472. Knowing that you rapped over, I was telling you before, a Primo beat, a Kanye beat, a DJ Quick. Were you able, I know you did a bunch of production on the album, but were you able to kind of like take your foot off the gas a little bit and really enjoy the rapping side of the album?
No, not really, but I did it just because like I said, I wanted to view myself for a second as an artist, right? And I was like, if I was an artist, I wanted a Primo beat. If I was an artist, I want a DJ Quick beat or whatever it is. I was just like, so even like the D-Dot, I was like the mad rapper. I was like, if I'm, whoever got beats that I like, I'm gonna rap over their beats and see what happens. Just sort of be different. And I wanted my album to be different than what I was making for my artist. 25
years is the anniversary for Life in 1472. What does that album mean to you, knowing that's your debut, that's your baby?
Like I said, it just means like the beginning. It was like the beginning of so much. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, education that I see a lot of people don't really even understand that they was getting. Like the first time you ever heard Kanye was on my album, right? People don't even understand that. Like, you know what I mean? And even like it's an argument, and Jay don't like to talk about it because he thinks that he was popping in Atlanta before we did Money and Thing. But he don't understand. In College Park, it wasn't no Jay-Z going down up and down.
Turn down that hole. Yeah.
Nah, it wasn't. That wasn't happening. So it was like it was a breakthrough of a whole bunch of things.
My breakthrough, into hip hop. My cousin, he put me on the pod big early on. The first CD I ever got, shout out to my mama, was "Beware the Dog." Was Bow Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old was you?
I was in 5th grade. So I was like 10, 11. That album's a classic. Y'all better put respect on Mr. 106 in Park. And shout out to Mr. JD for putting that album together. But I bring that up because knowing you picked up Bow Wow, who was obviously super young, going into that mind state of I had Criss Cross already. I did the kids rap. How am I going to do this differently with Bow Wow? What was that mindset for you?
Well, Bow Wow was a rapper. So when I met Bow Wow, he was a rapper already. He was already cussing on Snoop Dogg album.
I think he performed on Arsenio Hall, or he did like Arsenio Hall. I remember coming out him seeing like him perform. I forgot what show
but
it
I'm
was.
saying on the Snoop Dogg album when the dude go in the classroom, he say, "You back there with them French braids. What you want to be when you grow up?" He said, "I want to be a motherfucking pimp." That's Bow Wow.
I remember that. Yeah.
That's Bow Wow. He say that on the album. So the world had heard Bow Wow already from that album. So Bow Wow's mentality was already that he was popping because he was on the Snoop album, cursing, and his name actually was Kid Gangster when I met him, and he was signed to Death Row, and Snoop was like, "Man, if you don't take this kid, he gonna be fucked up," and they was just trying to get him away from the influence that they felt they was putting on him at I think like 5. Cause when I got Bow Wow, he was 11. He was 10. So he was with me 2 years before he came out. So yeah, he was 10. So he was 5 or 6 years old when he was signed to Death Row. Listen, look at how everybody like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Man, I was. I feel like Bow, especially in today's day, I feel like he doesn't get the flowers or respect he should get, knowing that he was Mr. 106, carving out these #1 songs. How would you describe his legacy in rap?
The same thing. It's like all new. Everything about So Def is new, right? So it's like people don't really know how to address things that are new. They only know how to address things that they've seen before, and that somebody else has copied and somebody else has repeated. But when you have the situations where it's new, so the only thing that people could compare Bow Wow to was Criss Cross. They was like, oh, he's trying to be like Criss Cross. But it was not trying to be like Criss Cross. He was completely different. Criss Cross, I made Criss Cross rap. I actually gave them songs to like learn how to rap and learn cadence and all of this. Bow Wow was like, you put a mic in his hand when he was little, he gonna rap. Like, it shit might not make sense, but he was still trying to rap. Like, he was just a rapper. He had a mentality to rap, and he had this rapper swag about him already. So, coming into Bow Wow's project, it was just like, okay, this guy is already like he already thinks he's a celebrity. You just got to put some songs with him just to go along with what he already feels like he is. But he was completely, him and Criss Cross was like night and day. You know what I mean? As far as making the projects. Because even like when I, was writing the songs for Bow Wow, he would tell me to leave the studio and leave him in the studio with the engineer and let him record the songs by himself. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. So I'll write like 3-4 songs. And I'll write a bunch of songs to try to like stump him, right? To see if like how long it's gonna take him. And I'll go to the club or something, right? And I'll come back. To the studio and I'll be like, where y'all at? And I, thinking they was gonna be still on the same song. And the engineer be like, I'm about to go home. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I'm done. And I say, what you mean you're done? He's like, he knocked all the songs out. So he's doing like 5 songs in like an hour. and like learning the songs and then doing them exactly the way they supposed to be done. He just was a rapper. He just had that thing about him.
I love that. I love that. For you, if you could rank these three, JD the producer, JD the songwriter, and JD the rapper. 1, 2, 3. How would you rank them?
The probably songwriter first. JD the producer, and then JD is the rapper.
Why that order?
You heard these songs, that right?
I mean, I have. Listen, you were inducted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2018. Give him a hand, because he has some shit.
I'm playing, like, I'm saying, like the ability to write songs for people and then and they translate it into their own things. Like, I one morning I turned on a V103 and I heard Chili on the radio saying something about Usher and cheating, and she was just like really like trying to expose Usher on the radio about Confessions, and I'm like, this don't even have shit to do with you. Like, you're on the radio making up a story about a story that I wrote that don't even have nothing to do with him. That's difficult. That's like writing a movie, right? It's like when you can evoke the emotions of somebody else to make them believe that the story that they're listening to is about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's deeper than me making a beat, I swear. And by the way, I don't even know how the fuck I do that, but I'm saying it's happened. And I'm like, wow, okay, so, I would just try to pay attention to that,
Is there a record that you wrote to this day, when you hear it, it takes you somewhere mentally, emotionally?
Yeah, Confessions, because it's my story.
Are you still playing it like every day, like it in the shower?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you have to be pretty bold to put your shit on somebody else. Confessions was my story. It's a story that I actually went through my first child. And it's a situation that I was living. So I wrote the song as like how rappers write raps about whatever you see. I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Usher performed it and sung it to you guys so well that people believed it was his story. Usher didn't even have no kids when we did Confession. Y'all realize that? Like he didn't even have no kids. He didn't have, ain't like he had one or two. He had no kids when that song came out.
Wow.
And people was like, that's what I'm saying. Chili believed the story and knew it wasn't no kids there. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck is going on? Like, how is this possible?
Right.
That's difficult to write. I mean, I'm sure anybody else that's ever tried to like write a song that's tried to like study that, it's difficult to do that. I swear.
I gotta ask, because you brought up, I do know how many, number ones you got, the records you've done. When is this versus with Puff happening?
I don't know. You gotta ask him. I would think,
Atlanta, y'all want to see a versus?
No, they don't want to see that. Because y'all don't want to see all these New York niggas try to act like they don't like me for no reason, right? That's what y'all know gonna happen. You know that, right? All the New Yorkers, it's like gonna be a New York Atlanta thing. It ain't even gonna be about me and Puff. It's just gonna be about all the New Yorkers that move to Atlanta for no fucking reason. Look. Anyway, no, I'm just saying. Now, for real, that's what it comes down to. It ain't really like, I think you guys want this more than he and I do. Like, I don't care to do no verses like that.
Us New York cats, we still waiting.
Yeah, y'all want it back because y'all just want to prove that New York is better than Atlanta.
We come through with our Yankees fitted, we ready to go.
Yeah.
Man, before we wrap, I gotta ask you this, man, because I asked you the first question. What does 50 years mean to you? What do you want to see for the next 50 years, next 100 years, just in general, the future of hip hop? Where do you want to see it go?
I want to see the education go back into music. And I want to see people start paying attention to hip hop the same way we paid attention to hip hop. Like, if you only been into hip hop for 3 years, cool. Don't act like you know everything about the 50 years of hip hop if you only been in this shit for 3 years, right? Study. Don't be afraid to study 10 years of hip hop. It's definitely education. It's a whole education in hip hop that spans way longer than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And you know, it don't even really make sense for people to. I think that if you don't do that, you're cutting the genre. You know, you're not doing it any justice by doing that. Studying and learning about hip hop, hopefully things like graffiti and breaking and DJing is something else will come along that'll make you have to like learn. But like, you know, if you want to be a graffiti artist, you can't just like wake up in the morning and be like, I'm gonna go tag a train. It's like a whole education to how you got to catch the train, what train is sitting in the yard, how you got to get over there so the police don't see you, and then enough time for you to put the tag on the train, color it, and get up out of there before the train moves in the morning. Like that's you have to study that shit. That's not. And by the way, I was like a person that was trying to do that. I wanted to be the first nigga to tag MARTA, and I kept looking at the MARTA trains. I was trying to figure out the yard, and I started realizing like how like educated you gotta be and how smart you gotta be to do something to vandalize these people's property. You have to be smart to do that. You can't just, this ain't like I said, this ain't just waking up, jumping over the gate and doing this. These guys are very, very meticulous about how they was doing this. Even when you see guys that's tagging like the billboards on the highway, you know how late you gotta be to get up there and realize that there's no cars coming in this time period for us to get this piece off. And there's pieces around here that's like this, like, and people have taken their time. I'm just saying, the education of hip hop, I pray that it continues because it's a whole story in that itself.
I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, Jermaine Dupri.
Yeah.